Hello everyone, I'm Terrence Rudolph, and I'm the State Conservationist for USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service in Georgia. First, let me tell you and the organizers of this event, thank you. Feral swine has become very detrimental to Georgia's agriculture industry for quite some time now. To tackle this challenge, it's going to take all of us working together in a delicate and synchronized effort, and I really do appreciate the role that each of you play in this fight. While we recognize that there are far more capable members on the team who can get their hands directly involved in the management role, NRCS is committed to utilizing a landscape-level approach to comprehensive conservation planning to address natural resource concerns like feral swine, among others. By looking at all available natural resources and concerns, we are able to offer our customers a roadmap that merges with the management objectives and our conservation standards. Since 2019, Georgia has been one of 10 states utilizing the Federal Swine Eradication and Control Pilot Program to help provide financial assistance for 20 projects through grants to partners for training, equipment, and feral swine trapping. This program is implemented jointly by USDA Animal and Plant Health and Inspection Service and NRCS, and reflects our USDA team effort to help respond to the threat feral swine pose to agriculture, native ecosystem, and human and animal health. What this program does not do is provide financial assistance for the destruction and disposal of trapped feral swine. NRCS is not authorized by Congress to provide financial assistance to destroy these animals. We know that you can call on other USDA agencies or partner organizations to fulfill their respective roles, in addition to helping us to conduct various educational workshops. We value efforts like these to help everyone better understand the full scope of the problem and appreciate the public and private partners involved, and most importantly, the landowners. Folks, this difficult challenge is not small. It's a huge task. This problem has been building for decades, but it has reached a tipping point in many areas that something extraordinary has to be done. And by bringing valuable resources and perspective to the table today, and throughout all these workshops, there are better days ahead. Thank you again for allowing me to be part of your program. And if one of our dedicated conservationists located all over Georgia can be of assistance, please find your nearest USDA service center by going to farmers.gov and clicking on the Connect tab. We look forward to meeting you and working with you in the future.
Our chances of, as mentioned, of eliminating feral swine from our environment is not going to happen. But what we've got to do is keep them at bay, okay? What I'm going to talk about is a serious threat. This has been mentioned. Each year, farmers, certain parts, right over here, Buckhead Creek, not too far away, was mentioned. But they plant their crops 2 and 3 times. And in some places, they don't even plant certain crops anymore because they have to plant a lesser valued crop because the pigs are going to destroy it. So this is a major problem. Before I get started any further, I want to ask a couple of questions. Who in here is a hunter of pigs? Raise your hand. Raise it high. All right. Who in here is a farmer? Okay. All right. Very good. Who in here is a trapper? Okay. All right. So we all have a vested interest in something related to these feral pigs. You've seen things about urban and suburban environments being destroyed, so I won't go any farther with that. This is what I'm going to talk about mostly. You've been shown what pigs can do to your environment, okay? What they can do to our domestic animals and people is what I'm going to talk about, okay? You need to consider all feral swine to be infected with some kind of disease, okay? This right here, zoonotic, if you're not familiar with this term right here, this means the animal can transmit the disease to people directly, okay? Well, pigs have a lot of zoonotic diseases, and we're going to talk about some of them. And then this right here, you might not have considered this. This is my world with the Department of Agriculture. Pigs, the United States of America produces a tremendous amount of swine, okay? When these pigs are sold, the producer, the farmer who grows these pigs, when these pigs are sold, they have a certain value, okay? And this value fluctuates, of course, but it's based upon a lot of what the ability to trade with the rest of the world is, okay? Every pig's got, I don't know exactly the figure, but we'll say about $50 of its value is based upon this international trade. Okay? So, there are two diseases primarily that are considered programmed diseases, and these diseases are brucellosis and pseudorabies. Georgia is brucellosis and pseudorabies free in our commercial pigs. Has been for a number of years since the 80s, okay? That didn't happen by itself. It had a lot to do with the same reason we're now brucellosis free in cattle. And Bill, he was a part of that. And we'll let you talk about that in a little while if you wish. But if we lose that status, then our ability to sell our pigs, whether it's the commercial pigs or whether it's Farmer John selling his one pig or his 5 pigs at the local livestock market, his values are going to be like this. Okay? So it affects everybody, not just the big pig producers. It affects Farmer John too. And that's what the marketplace is all about. It depends upon us staying free of these diseases. And these diseases are really present in significant numbers within our feral swine. Here's a list of some of the diseases. The ones that are bold are zoonotic, meaning you can get them. Okay? And some of these we don't even have in our country anymore. Okay? Can anybody tell me what this is? Classical swine fever. Some of you guys with white hair probably remember this one. What's classical swine fever? It's hog cholera. Who remembers hog cholera? Okay? Well, hog cholera is in the Caribbean, 90 miles offshore. Okay? Any and all of these diseases are in the world. And they're only a short plane ride or a short boat ride away. This is an example, and this is dated January because I like the way it was set up. But I get this once a week. This is OIE. Do you know what OIE is? It's the World Animal Organization. Okay? This is their report. And if you'll look, African swine fever, blue tongue, Algiskis, which guess what Algiskis is? That's pseudorabies. That's another nice, what they call it in Europe. Okay? African swine fever. This is everywhere across the world. It's a short plane ride and boat ride away. In Georgia, we're doing our best to try to keep our status of brucella and pseudorabies negative or free in our state. We've tested since 2017 up until 2 days ago. We've tested this many transitional pigs. Now, what's a transitional pig? This is Farmer John's pig. Commercial pigs are what we define as pigs that are raised indoors. They never step foot on the ground. They're raised in this building. They walk up onto a truck and they're taken to slaughter. Okay? All right, the transitional pigs are raised out back on the dirt. Back when I was a youngster, that's the way most all pigs were raised. And we all of a sudden decided, hey, let's put them indoors. We got bigger litters. We had bigger pigs. You know why? It's because they don't have to compete with the parasitism, with the rest of the wildlife out there. But now, what's the trend across the country? We got people in downtown Atlanta with potbelly pigs in their apartment. We got people with goats in their backyard, you know, chickens in their apartment. The backyard, back to nature thing is very much becoming more and more a common event, which is going to do what? It's leading us right back to these days when we didn't have these animals are now going to be more and more exposed to all this disease. We've tested 313 feral swine. We don't normally go around testing feral swine. But in our holding facilities, these swine are required to be tested. And so that's where that number came from. Positives. Since in this time frame, our transitional Farmer John's pigs, we've got about a 1.2% prevalence of positive brucellosis. We've got about a 0.4 prevalence of pseudorabies in these backyard pigs. Now, these are pigs that are being sold at our livestock markets. Okay? These, we got about a 20% positive of brucellosis and about a 16% positive pseudorabies in the wild pigs. Okay? So if you go out there and handle, you kill, you handle, you butcher, you do all this, a wild pig, you got 20% chance of being exposed to brucellosis. And you got 15.7% chance of being exposed to this. But the only good thing about this is it doesn't affect people. Brucella is zoonotic. People get it. As a matter of fact, I got it. In that year, I worked with the USDA in this accelerated brucellosis program when we were going around testing all these herds to get rid of brucellosis in cattle. I contracted the disease. I got into a hot herd, and anyway, I got it through mucous membranes in my eyes. Okay? And you don't want to have it, folks. 2 years ago, I got new knees. My back's messed up. I can't prove it, but I think brucella had a lot to do with it, because that's how it affects you. We'll talk about this. Dogs. Look here. We've had 17 positive dogs. And pseudorabies affects our domestic animals. So does brucella. But pseudorabies will kill a dog, pseudorabies will kill a cow, pseudorabies will kill everything other than pigs. Anybody ever heard of mad itch? That's the common name that's used for pseudorabies. And dog does not live long. Brucella, there's multiple kinds of brucella, but we're talking about brucella suis, which is the kind that pigs have. Most of these are either hog dogs or somebody's dog pet that just wanders out into the woods And lo and behold, somebody shot a pig or something, and you got a dead pig laying out in the woods, and the dog fools around sniffing and eating on the pig, and boom. Okay? Oh, let's go back one. Something I want to point out to you. The department, if we have a single positive, we're going to quarantine that herd of pigs, and we're going to trace it out. What tracing means is if we had Farmer John brings a pig into a livestock market, okay, every breeding animal going through the market, we're taking a blood sample and testing, okay? The ones that are going directly to slaughter, we're not. But the ones that are going back to a farm somewhere, we're bleeding and testing. And we find brucellosis 1.2% of the time in these pigs. When we do, we go back to Farmer John's farm, we quarantine those pigs, and we test them to find out if there's any more. If there are, we work through a process to get rid of it. And we also go to whoever bought that pig. Okay, so that's called tracing. Tracing backward, tracing forward. And that's how we eliminate disease. Here's how you're going to eliminate disease. Biosecurity. That's a kind of a catch-all word, and I know you've probably heard a lot about it since COVID came, haven't you? I mean, our world's changed since COVID. And you know, there's going to be some good things come out of COVID. It's very sad and bad about people getting sick and people dying and so forth. But we've learned new terms like Zoom, you know, and Teams, and masks, how to wear masks, you know, how to clean, wash your hands, and use hand sanitizer. And I mean, we've learned a lot about disease prevention, period. And so biosecurity is just a way to prevent feral swine from transmitting disease to anything. It's the way we protect our crops. It involves separating, this is the key, separating the unwanted stuff, which is feral swine, from the wanted stuff. But you gotta do it at all times. That's the hard part. And because of that, it can be inconvenient and costly. It can be a pain to put gloves on and wear a mask when you clean a pig. It can be a pain that when your boots, you clean, disinfect your boots, you know, that kind of thing. You back of your truck where you hauled the dead pig, cleaning and disinfecting. That's hard, but that's the way you get rid of it or prevent it. You establish a barrier. Barrier's your glove. Barrier's a fence. Barrier is something that prevents this from getting to there. You establish somehow a means to remove these guys. Trapping is what we're going to talk about primarily today, and that is the best way. You wear something to protect yourself, and you clean and disinfect afterwards. And here's a big key. Dispose of these carcasses properly. You know, that pet Labrador that you let out to go to use the restroom runs out in the woods and gets infected because there's a dead pig laying out there. Or maybe the coyote drugged the dead pig from over yonder over to here and left it, and now your dog goes to it. That kind of a thing. Cook your meat. If you cook your meat well, you're not going to get disease, okay? So if you're going to eat feral swine in any kind of way, make sure it's prepared properly. This came from the Department of Public Health. Humans get brucellosis through exposure to infected animals and animal products. Look at this. B. suis is implicated in the majority of human infections in Georgia. Feral swine. Hunters are exposed commonly when they field dress. And we've had several wives that were exposed because the husband killed the deer, brought it home, and the wife was the one that did the dressing and butchering of the pig. Say, gee, thanks, hubby, right? You can also inhale it, but that's not a biggie. But through skin wounds. You know, when you're cleaning your pig, don't get a chew of tobacco. You know, your hands are all messy. Don't reach in your back pocket and get a chew. I used to chew tobacco a long time ago. I know about that. I used to chew it, especially when I was delivering a calf that it was already dead, you know? Butchering, handling raw meat, and then eating that's not thoroughly cooked. Here are your symptoms that are most commonly seen: fever, chills, sweating, headache, decreased appetite, fatigue, muscle pain, and joint pain. And I can tell you it's like the worst case of flu you ever had. Everything hurts. And brucella becomes an intracellular organism. In other words, it's not sitting out there running around in your bloodstream only. It gets into your cells. And that's important. We'll talk about that. Most have joint pain and swelling in Georgia. They can occur up to a week or a month after you actually get exposed. If you're hunting pigs or you're around feral swine, keep this in mind, folks. Oh man, I just feel bad. You know, my fingers are hurting, or you know, my knees are hurting. They didn't used to hurt. I was around feral swine. Go see your doctor. Get tested. Okay? Testing is long-term use of antibiotics, and this may be multiple long-term use of antibiotics. If you don't treat it, it comes back, and people can develop serious problems with their bones, joints, and heart. When I had it, I was on antibiotics for quite a while. I'm thinking longer than 6 weeks. But then I had 2 relapses over a period of about a year and a half. And then I have not been able to associate any specific thing with brucella, just going messing up. The way brucella was mostly transmitted in people years and years ago was from drinking raw milk. That's Brucella abortus. Got a net trying to get me. Brucella abortus. And guess what you call that? One of the terms, you know, brucella is called Bang's disease, abortus is, in cows. Okay? Brucella abortus in people is often called undulant fever, because you have a fever, you're sick, it goes away. It comes back, you have a fever, you're sick, it goes away. So it's an on and off kind of thing, and that's why it was named undulant fever. And the way we don't have that problem anymore is because we pasteurize milk. Okay? And guess what the trend is now? People are wanting to drink raw milk. So look for stuff happening, folks. There's a lot of diseases in raw milk other than just brucella. Okay. Another thing you can do is avoid contact. If you have a visibly ill animal, my gosh, shoot it and get it disposed of properly. Don't dress it and take it home. And know you clean. Use sharp knives. Wear protection. Make sure you bury your stuff that you use for protection. Avoid bare skin. Wear gloves. Don't feed the dogs raw meat or other parts of the carcass, because they're going to get it too. Wash your hands good, and then clean up afterwards. Common sense stuff, right? But it's important. That's how you're going to stop any disease. Okay, we talk about the law. Okay, this is the official code of Georgia, Georgia law. We have this stuff that's in the 2 right here has to do with the Department of Agriculture. The stuff that's in the 27 has to do with DNR. And as Matt mentioned earlier, this is the first, guys, when our legislature passed the Feral Hog Act, okay, which is this one right here. When they passed that, they gave privilege or ability for DNR to enforce Georgia Department of Agriculture rules. Okay? We have a lot of cooperation between different agencies in the state. Okay? But I can't go enforce a DNR rule. I can't go enforce a Department of Corrections rule. I can't do that. Okay? But this allows them to enforce our rules specific for this. Okay? We had to define a pig. Can anybody tell me what the definition of a feral hog is? Somebody make a guess. What do you think feral hog definition is? Yeah, I'm looking at you. Yeah?
I'd say wild hog.
Okay. Well, you remember we talked about that this is not wildlife. These hogs are not considered wildlife.
Farm animals that have gone wild.
Can be.
Invasive species.
It's an invasive species. Guess what? Guess what part of the Georgia Department of Agriculture 2 is? In our code, 2 is pests. A feral hog is a pest. It's what we consider it. And the definition of a feral hog, not verbatim, but it's roughly a pig that has lived any part of its life in the wild or is currently doing so. So Farmer John's pig that gets out the fence and roams around out in the woods a little while, whether it be for a day or a week, a month or whatever, it's a feral pig. But here's the problem too, is Farmer John's fence most often consists of bed springs, pallets, and car hoods. Okay? So it just happens whichever side of the fence you catch them on, because they're doing this constantly, you know? And that's why these pigs are getting brucella and pseudorabies. All right, so this was passed back in 2015. Okay? In 2018, we promulgated the rules, which we gave, what were we doing all that time? We were going around the state talking about these rules and everything, having public hearings and all that kind of stuff. Okay? And then we made them effective January 1, 2019. So they've been in effect for a while. The code's been in effect since 2015. This has been in effect since January 1, 2019. And this defines the transportation and holding of live feral swine. Can you click on that link up there, please? Getting it up there. What we tried to do was to establish a definitive means of identifying what a feral swine was. Okay? Remember, Farmer John's pigs and feral swine are doing this, right? So often, a feral swine doesn't look like that long-tailed, pointy-eared, long-haired, long-nosed pig. It depends on how much time it's spent out of Farmer John's fence for it to revert, and how many generations for it to revert back to that, okay? So it could look just like Farmer John's pigs. So how do you tell the difference? Well, we determined that the best way to tell the difference was to have something on that pig that identified it as feral, and that's an ear tag. Now, have you ever tried to put an ear tag in a feral swine? It's very hard. Anyway, this is it. You can go to the right here. SOS is Secretary of State. Anybody can look this up. Okay? So you have definitions, you have applicability, general provisions, transportation, and then you go down into a permit and feral swine holding facility, and then a feral swine license. In order to hold a live feral swine longer than 24 hours, you must have a license from the Department of Agriculture. And that license requires a lot of stuff. It requires no breeding going on, only males or only females, okay? It requires fencing, certain kind of fencing. It requires ID. It requires record keeping, so forth and so on. Now, if you want to carry a live feral swine down the road, out of the woods, down the road, you must have a permit from the Georgia Department of Agriculture to permit these things. And both of these things, you can close that. And then let's go to the next slide, yeah. So a transport, click on the, The key here is live, folks. Nothing's required to transport a dead pig down the road. Okay? This is the main landing page of the Georgia Department of Agriculture. I recommend y'all visit it. There's a lot going on. Okay, there's two ways to get this transport. Once you get the transport permit from us, there are two things you have to do. Or there are two ways to accomplish it. You got to keep records. Transport permitted person does. But you also either A, you've got to tag this pig before it leaves, or your DNR has created an app that you can go online in the woods, okay? And this thing, once you put the app on your phone, even in the woods when you don't have cell service, you can still create this document in the woods, and the minute you arrive into cell service, it populates, okay? But this allows you to permit, this allows you to transport the live pig from point A to point B, as long as you're going to a facility that's approved. So instead of having to wrestle with the pig in the woods and put a tag in it, this lets you do this here, and then you wrestle with the pig to put a tag in it when you get to the holding facility. Okay, so a feral hog holding facility requires a license, but we're not going to give you one until we've gone out there and make sure that you've met all the qualifications required to hold these feral pigs. Bottom line is, we prefer the feral pigs are dead in the woods. Okay? We talked about politics, we talked about different things. All that was involved for us to get to this point. Okay? I'll say this, the state of Tennessee, I was contacted by the state of Tennessee's state veterinarian, and they're trying to do something within their legislature right now. And what they're doing is they're going to require all pigs going down the road to have an ear tag. And that's how they're going to identify feral pigs. If it doesn't have an ear tag, it's feral swine. Okay? We couldn't make that happen here in Georgia, so we had to do it backwards. Feral swine got to have the ear tag, and Farmer John can still go to the market without tagging his pigs. Okay? Hopefully one day maybe we can flip-flop that and be a lot more practical and a lot easier. Okay? So I showed you where you go. This is just a link that takes you to the page that we went to just a minute ago about getting your permit or your license. And that's the end of what I've got to say. I thank you. Thank you very much for coming.